And once I sign off on it, you're ready to install your valve cover. Okay, so we got our valve cover here. Don't forget we have a valve cover gasket. We want to make sure we have one of these. I find it's easiest to put it into the cover and then carefully set the cover down on top of the cylinder head, making sure we get everything lined up. What we don't want to do is rely on the bolts to draw the valve cover down, so we want to make sure that it sits and fits down all the way. It should be kind of a close fit all the way around, but it should go down. And now is the point where I need to pull out the bolts for my valve cover. Okay, I got my bolts. They're pretty small. Remember the one with the bracket? That is going to go in this corner here, which will be directly above the carburetor. Just like before, I'm going to set these into place. I'm going to come back with my T-handle, spin them in. Make sure the threads line up. If they don't line up, you might have to back it out and check again. And these are also going to get torqued to 60 inch-pounds. Okay. Now that the starter motor is torqued, we have a heat shield that lays across like this. If you forget this and come back to put it in at a later step, you can slip it in here underneath the flywheel and get it into the right spot. A little bit tricky, but definitely possible. At this point now, we need to install the flywheel key and the flywheel. So I've got my flywheel key taped to my cardboard here. I'm going to want to pull it off. Before I go to install it, I want to make sure that the sides of it are smooth and that there's no partial shearing or deep scoring happening, and that it's in relatively good shape. If not, see me for a replacement. When I go to put this in, I'm going to want it so that the top of it is parallel to the crankshaft center line. And then next comes our flywheel. We want to line up the key seat in our flywheel with the key and gently set it on. Okay. It's not going to go all the way down, so don't expect it to. We have our flywheel fins. These can only go on one way. The big notch here goes over the magnet. And then we have our starter cup and our nut. This little nub on the bottom of the starter cup needs to go either here or here into these little openings. So I gotta line it up with one of those openings, and then I can drop on my nut, spin it down hand tight. This is going to be rather tight at 250 to 300 inch-pounds using a 17 millimeter deep socket. We'll get it set to 250 inch-pounds, and we're also going to want to use a flywheel holder. Okay, 250 inch-pounds. Got my flywheel holder that's going to engage next to the flywheel magnet. I'm going to use that in my left hand. I'm going to take my torque wrench in my right. And I'm just going to bring them together very slowly and carefully. Okay, torqued. At this point, we're ready to move on to installing our solid-state ignition module, otherwise known as our Magneto. So I'm going to rotate this a little bit like so, and I'm going to get our ignition module, okay, which is here. And this one is going to go with the connector up. And then I have this loose one here. This is going to go over that bolt hole nearest the spark plug wire. And I'm also going to get a couple of brass feeler gauges. I'll let the magnet hang on to that. We got to set the gap on this before we bolt it down. But I can put the bolts in and leave them slightly loose while I get things situated. So I'll drop that one in. I'll put the bolt through this eyelet and then down into the hole. And I'm going to run them most of the way down, but I'm going to leave them loose so that I can move the Magneto around and get the feeler gauge blades in there to set the gap. And I'll even take and set up my torque wrench here so that it's ready to go at 60 to 80 inch-pounds for torque specification. So that's good to go. My gap specification is 10 to 19 thousandths of an inch. The closer that the Magneto is to the flywheel, the better our spark production will be, so I'm going to get the 10. And I want to use 2 of them. Using 2 is just going to make it easier. I'm going to put the magnet so it splits the difference between the 2 legs of the laminated iron core. I'm going to pull one out, put my gauge in. I'm going to come over and I'm going to pull the other one out, put my gauge in. And then I'm going to let the magnet and my fingers pull everything together, and I'm going to take my wrench and I'm just going to gently snug up the bolts. The wire underneath this bolt right here needs to come off this way, the same direction as the spark plug wire does. This terminal tends to want to rotate with the bolt as I torque it down. So when I go to torque this, I need to make sure I hold that wire terminal from rotating. Okay, 60 there. 60 there. Once I've got that torqued into place, I can pull my brass feeler gauges and I'll have a perfect 10 thousandths gap with torque bolts, and then make sure this wire comes off the edge here.